Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys doing this evening? I have a really cool episode for you this evening, something that is definitely worth discussing. And we are now streaming live on TikTok, of course, and also Facebook. All right, for those of you who are wondering, this is also going to be a call-in program, which means you can call in and give your opinion. Now, if you're watching on TikTok, I invite you to go over to my page on Facebook and you can get a whole write-up about what we're actually discussing tonight. But I will give you a little bit of information about this. Now, tonight I'm going to be making a citizen's proposal to our government based on creating a new tax policy. Okay? Now, I've been living and working in Guyana for the last 20-something odd years. And, I've been all around Guyana, places that you want to be and places that you will probably not want to be. Okay? And there are a few things that are very synonymous throughout the country, and that is the fact that people are very displeased with their quality of life. Now, when people are displeased with their quality of life or the way they're being treated or the way they feel they're being treated, people are going to be very reluctant to want to be, cooperative citizens, okay? Let the statement that I say next stay in your head because it's a very important statement. When you make it harder for people to do the right thing, they will more than likely do the wrong thing, okay? When you make it easier for people to do the right thing and profitable for people to do the right thing, people will more than likely gravitate toward doing the right thing. All right. Now, before I dive deep into this, I want to give you a little bit of history behind why this is important, at least why it's important to me and why it should be important to you as a Guyanese citizen or someone planning on investing in Guyana. Okay, first and foremost, our taxes are really freaking high. Our income taxes go from 28 to 42%. It's almost like you're being punished for working. Okay, so I'm going to address that tonight. All right, next thing, cost of living in Guyana is incredibly high. And one of the main reasons for this is because the things that Guyanese want to enjoy are not manufactured here in Guyana. So there needs to be an offset, something that balances the scales, okay? That makes it affordable for all citizens in Guyana to have an exceptionally high quality or standard of life. It should no longer be afforded to just a handful of people here in this country. And I believe that my approach may be the correct approach because I'm only a citizen, I'm not in government, and may I just put this disclosure out there so that everyone can understand. I'm not an economist, I don't have a special doctorate in anything, okay? Well, maybe I do some degree of financial services, but that's just within my own personal network. But outside of that, or outside of the private sector, I do not operate. Okay? But I'm also a humanitarian. And being a humanitarian, I always look for ways that will make human life better and easier to sustain at a certain quality of life. This is imperative. Oh, I like that. Thank you very much. Yeehaw. All right. Yeah, sorry, I had to say that. For those of you watching on TikTok, thank you guys so much, by the way. Good evening to everybody who's coming on. All right. Now, being in Guyana, it shouldn't feel like a punishment, right? But it does. At least it does when you're an average citizen and you're working a regular 9 to 5. It feels like no matter how hard you work, you can't afford anything nice because it's just too damn expensive and you don't really earn enough. And then from what you earn, you're losing, 30 to 40% of your money. And I know that there is tax incentives for people who make like around 12,000 US dollars a year, which is about 2.4 million Guyana dollars. But seriously, Seriously. That's not even, that's not even lower middle class payments there. Let's talk for real. Guyana's competing in the entire world with the fastest growing economy, and our most basic person does not take home enough to feel satisfied or to feel rewarded for the work they did. And on top of the fact that they are taking home a low wage, everything is exaggerated in price, not because people want it that way, but because the system is set in such a way it basically punishes you for being a citizen of this country. Now, there is something else, like the elephant in the room, that needs to be discussed, right? And this is going to be a very important thing, right? And this counteracts that, by the way. Some people might say what you're about to say is very, very dangerous. And it probably is very, very dangerous to say it. But then again, I'm not in government. I'm just a citizen. So, if the big boys choose not to take my advice, that is perfectly within their rights to do so. But hopefully, in the interest of the people of Guyana, somebody does at some point in time, right? And unfortunately, if you don't do it at the right time in the country's development, you kind of lose that opportunity to do it the right way. And it just so happens that we are at the perfect time to implement this type of policy where it will be beneficial, long-term, and transformative for the entire country. And it is a policy that most people will not complain about because it benefits everybody. Well, it doesn't benefit the bad guys. It doesn't benefit people who are involved in corruption. Okay? It doesn't benefit people who like to slave you out. Doesn't benefit those three people off the top. I'll tell you right now. So if anybody's come to kill me after I say what I got to say here tonight, it's somebody involved in one of those three things. They're either highly corrupted, okay? They desperately want to see you punished, and they enjoy being your boss and keeping you down, right? So if I'm attacked, I'm putting you in that category tonight. Now, let me clarify what I consider an attack. An opinion is not an attack. A well-structured comment is not an attack. A suggestion is not an attack. Okay? I will also ask that all persons who are involved in politics or supporting your parties or whatever it is you're supporting, when you come on this platform here, we speak to everyone with respect. Even if you don't like the person, speak to them with respect. I would like this to be one of the few platforms that is neutral, kind of a safe space for people to share their ideas, right? I'm looking for solutions, not more reasons to keep arguing about the status quo. We are looking to improve the system and reduce the arguments that are happening and reduce the conflict and the areas that, or at least those gray areas, remove those gray areas where a lot of funny business happens. Okay, guys? And yeah, I mean, funny business, right? As you know, recently, you've heard all this talk about GRA and all of this tax evasion and all of this stuff. Well, this policy addresses that, okay? It addresses it in a huge way. You heard rumors and allegations about ministers and everybody buying properties overseas. This policy addresses that, and it keeps it fair, okay? In fact, this policy is so developed and geared toward Guyanese growth. I think that the people of Guyana will love it. I don't know how the rest of the world will feel about it, but to some degree, it benefits the rest of the world collectively. It also benefits future investors, right? All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about it. Let me go ahead and sip my tea. Made a fresh cup of tea, hot tea. Good night, everyone. Got this phone positioned a little funny. We've got a couple phones here. I feel like I'm working at a phone company right now. Also, for those of you who are wondering, this is a call-in program. So you could call in, or you can ask to come up live on any one of the chats, whether it's on TikTok or whether it's on Facebook, right? On this platform, your opinion matters. Oh, the cowboy hat again. Yeehaw. Let's do this. All right, guys. So what is this thing that Papa Snow is talking about, right? Well, I'll tell you what it is. I'm talking about completely overhauling our tax system by putting a few policies in place that protect the people of Guyana. But it is going to be a major overhaul of the tax system, right? So thank you so much for the Pip Crane. Loving it, loving it. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing, right? I want to talk about some of the benefits for Guyanese here. What does this system entail? Like what's going to happen? What should we expect if the government was to accept the system? Like, what is this system? What are you talking about, Papa Snow? Get to the point. Get to the point. We got shit to do. Get to the point. Yeah, I know. So the first thing is the removal of income tax, right? And I've spoken about this before, and I've actually been working on this thing strategically for a while. And, you know, it's not something that can be done permanently, but it's something that could be done for the people of Guyana now. Okay? The removal. By the way, everything I'm talking about here tonight is for a 20-year program. It's a 20-year tax modification proposal. Okay? You can't remove income tax forever, but for the next 20 years, the removal of income tax could be done. All right? By the way, there is a way to offset that, and we're going to get to that as well, too, okay? One, we have a lot of work going on here in this country. And like I said, due to the pay grade, people don't get to take home as much as they need. And the reality is you can't keep raising their pay. That doesn't necessarily solve the problem. But what you could do is make their money go further. What do I mean by making your money go further? I mean, you pay less taxes, which means you get more items, which means things are going to be cheaper for you in a sense. Why do I say cheaper? Because it's not the removal of just income tax. We have a few other taxes we need to remove, at least for a 20-year period of time, until we, as a country, gets our shit together. Okay? It will make it easier to monitor, less chance of corruption, and did I say easier to monitor? Now, that's a very important key fact because we don't have enough skilled, honest people working in all of these offices to get behind or to follow up on everybody who may or may not be paying their income tax, or people who are making money on the side or freelancing or all of these things. We don't have the necessary mechanisms, nor do we have the manpower to have such an unrealistic system in place. Okay? And to hire that many people means putting more pressure on a system that needs to grow and become more efficient before you keep adding people in who may or may not be efficient or qualified to do their jobs just for the sake of running down your own citizens. Right? Right? So that's key thing. Right? I don't know who Rupa is, but okay. That sounds like a weird person. And block. I need people to actually, talk about things that make sense. I already told people we are speaking about the topic. Okay. Good night, good night. If anybody got your personal business, get a psychiatrist, get a love doctor, or pray to God, pray to Jesus. Right? Figure that shit out. That's your personal problem. I'm talking about country's financials here. Okay? Good. So, like I was saying, right, we need to make things more affordable for the people. And one of the ways that you do that is by keeping a little bit more money in their pocket, because they're already, for the most part, underpaid and overpriced in every single thing that they want to purchase here in Guyana. Now, this is a very important thing here. Two key things: underpaid, overpriced. Those two things compound poverty. They keep you down. You cannot grow. You're working 4 times, 5 times harder than you should to get something that you could have gotten a very, very long time ago, right? And these issues need to be addressed. Now, removing income tax helps the population keep 28 to 42% of their money that they've worked for, right? That they have worked for. I believe that governments who charge income tax are like the biggest bandits ever, because you charge people on taxes for everything, and then when they work, you still take taxes out of their work. And in Guyana, you don't necessarily get returns or refunds or special benefits. In fact, do you know what you get when you go in any type of tax office in Guyana or any type of government office in Guyana? You get to sit your ass down and wait until somebody who is corrupted approaches you and asks you if you would like to move a little faster, right? It's a whole racketeering system, right? But we get to address that, okay? We get to address that, right? So removal of income tax, which is a proposal in this policy, allows the people to breathe a little bit better, keep more of their hard-earned income. They will feel very happy about it. Next, we also need to remove the excessive duty and excise and import taxes. Those taxes there, ladies and gentlemen, is the absolute reason why something in America that costs $1 costs $5 in Guyana. By the way, let me reiterate, we don't produce shit in Guyana that goes on to the world in a large value-added way. Every citizen in Guyana is basically a customer of the international market. Almost every single thing that we use comes from abroad, and they are necessities to living a basic standard of life. The fact that we are paying so goddamn many taxes, it's only, in my opinion, systematic poverty and victimization, right? And I believe that maybe in the past, the government wasn't sure what they were doing. They had so many different outside hands. Maybe, within all of that, they could not figure out, like, how are we going to offset, what we're going to lose when we cut those things out. Okay, real simple. One of the areas that you need to tax is money that leaves Guyana. Now, this is very, very important for you to understand, ladies and gentlemen. Due to our deal with other international companies and whatnot, Guyana receives a very small percentage for certain things that others get from us, right? And that percentage is really, really low, right? And most of that money, okay, leaves, like, the most of the money that's earned from what Guyana does produce leaves the country. I'm recommending, in place of the removal of income tax for the Guyanese people, Guyanese people, and also the skilled workers that we need to build Guyana, because there's going to be tons of migrants coming in, and we need to make sure that they're stable. All Guyanese people like going for foreign. Everybody like going to America. America's like #1 place for Guyanese to run to. America, London, Canada. But do you know what's the beauty to all three of those places? Those places are minority built. Okay? Get this through their head. Actual Americans did not technically build America on their own. They may have been the bosses. They may have been the plantation owners. They may have been the CEOs and the tycoons and whoever this and this and this and this and this. But they were managing somebody. There was a workforce. There was a workforce that wanted to be there. Why did they want to be there? Oh shit, a better quality of life. People felt more rewarded for what they were working for. They were able to save more. They feel like their money did more for them in those areas. And the countries that they run to are also heavily subsidized in other areas. Guyana does not need to be subsidized. Guyana is a very, very wealthy country. The people do not need the same types of subsidies that a larger country, Guyana has less than 1 million people. Okay? We have massive, massive money coming into the country per capita per person. This is a fact. However, that will not last long. Okay? That would not last long. All right? And in fact, it looks like it's going to be shorter than we even expected with the new rumors, and I say rumors because I can't go and verify the documents to find out if it's true or not, about the first 2 wells, oil wells, right, that are set to basically be dry in the next couple of years. So I'm definitely waiting for our government to talk about that, because if we are borrowing money expecting to pay it off based on oil revenues over a certain period of time, then that can greatly affect us if the wells are not producing what they're estimated to produce, and we are still spending as if that amount will still come in. That's where danger happens. So we need a counterbalance. What is going to be that counterbalance? Well, one of my options for a counterbalance is a dynamic tourism and hospitality industry. Okay? And that is something that we could build in Guyana. We could build it with our foreign migrants who are coming in. We can also build it with our locals, based on the fact that there should be cheaper prices, more money to take home, less taxation, and benefits for spending your money in Guyana. See, ladies and gentlemen, when you remove those taxes on things, things can come into the country cheaper, people will have more spending power, but also because of a closed loop style system, that money stays here in Guyana. The value stays in Guyana. People will spend more money to come and live here because of those things. That will create a better situation for rental incomes for the people of Guyana, especially those of you. There's a lot of people in Guyana that got rent, that got homes, that got property, thanks to the government's housing program. So it does tie in with that. Also, let me just state, the lower taxation with the fact that they are building a new international wharf in Berbice, which can handle larger ships and all of these things, Guyana can become an international transit point for goods that are coming and going from South America. This is very, very important, right? Patricia, yes, tourism is not enough. We understand that, right? But you do need to build the tourism, the real estate sector, right? You need to build social programs. You need to build a lot of stuff in here. But those things cannot be built, or at least let me say those things cannot be built and owned by the people of Guyana under the current circumstances. Because the people of Guyana, even though there's some brilliant people here, we don't have the spending power. And normally, if something great is built here and someone does invest in it, okay, and they make money from it, that money normally leaves the country, which is why I am recommending a special tax on money that is leaving Guyana, right? As we remove income tax, we remove duties, we remove certain import taxes to make things more cost efficient for Guyanese, we need to balance those taxes with maybe somewhere around a 10 to 15% tax on money that is leaving Guyana, for something other than purchasing a tangible item. Okay? For instance, if somebody wants to buy a house and land overseas and they're sending money overseas for that, that money will be taxed. Those payments will be taxed. Because that means you have generated so much wealth in your country, you are now able to afford to send money outside of the country to empower somebody else's country. So on your way out, you're just going to leave something behind for the country that empowered you. Okay? I feel that's fair, right? With special attention being focused on large corporations and also businesses that do a lot of import and export, because you don't want money laundering to happen. However, based on these systems, it will reduce the need for money laundering. It will reduce the need for people to look for backdoors or special officers that they might be friends with in the tax system to get the break, because you don't need a break. You no longer need a break. Then, because of that, everyone can now upload their shit online and make doing your taxes very easy, very traceable. It also now allows the government to monitor taxation more efficiently, because you have less entities to monitor. You can monitor based on the goods that are coming in and where they're going. You take away looking at the citizen directly for accountability on certain things, and you utilize the systems within private sector and taxation through private sector for sales, so on and so forth, to ensure that the things that are being sold, the necessary taxes are being paid on those things, because there will still be sales tax. Sales tax is something that I believe should be across the board. Good evening, Errol. Blessings, brother. Sales tax is something that I believe should be across the board, because it is one of the few ways to ensure that every Guyanese pays their fair share of tax. Okay? And also, when you want to come down on sales tax and use this type of system, right? This is a system that will not allow illegal vending. Okay? You know what that means? That means there's no illegal vending. No popping up and just throwing up something somewhere, right? The people in those business areas are legally paying property tax, or paying city tax, or paying all sorts of taxes. Other persons are now going into those districts and turning the place into a goddamn shanty town, which is bad for tourism, by the way, bad for security, by the way, bad for sanitation, by the way, makes the place look like a horrible eyesore, right? You congest traffic all over the place. And at the end of the day, there is no solid way in which the government can accurately, monitor the amount of taxes that they lose through those things. Right? Just telling you. Now, based on that, because if you're taxing through the businesses and you're doing sales tax adequately and you're doing these things, it's very, very easy after that to monitor any company's books and know how much product they had come in, how much product went out, how many taxes they've paid. Very simple. And offer incentives to people like vendors. If you have if you're a vendor, licensed vendor, and you go to certain wholesale places, you might get a little extra discount. Something of that sort. Because exactly, Patricia, things are out of hand. How do you get it in hand? If you make it too tough, everybody's going to work together to beat the system. That's what's been happening in Guyana, which is why there's so much corruption. Because even good people are forced to duck and hide. If you make it hard, or you make it very challenging for people to do the right thing, they are less likely to do the right thing. Right? Hey, Mike, I'm on a live. Let me call you back when I'm done. Thanks. Yes, they are less likely to do the right thing, ladies and gentlemen. Right? I want to go over some of the stuff that's written above for those of you on Facebook, and also go over it for those of you on TikTok who may not be seeing the whole ride up, okay? I want to touch base on, you know, the name of the policy, for instance, right? So I just penned it very simple, you know, Guyana Local Reinvestment and Circular Economy Policy, right? What does that really target? It targets the reinvestment of our money back into our country, which means people who are reinvesting in Guyana will more than likely have the best options, okay? Errol, they are pumping 1 million barrels a day. The well is not going dry. They are not getting the 1 million barrel per day. Okay. Well, if the well is not running dry, whoever's out there pumping false information, I would hope that the government deals with them, because, you know, this is a very funny thing. Also, if there's no transparent checks and balances by that pump, then I can't say whether we are getting the right thing. I can't say, you know, definitively whether we're not. We have to trust the people that are there to watch it, and hopefully they're watching it, right? You know, who am I to talk? You know, just some idiot that could get wrongfully locked up, beaten, imprisoned, and slandered all over the place. So I gotta be careful too. I'm just saying. So, as a citizen, right, I'm going to just put my proposal forward and just try to keep it 100 and not step on nobody's toes there. But, you know, when you hear news and you hear stuff like that, Errol, you have to think, you know. You have to think, right, about what's going on. Rudy, what do you think about the high cost of living? I'm actually addressing the high cost of living now, and addressing some ways in which that cost of living can come down safely for the people of Guyana. I'm also integrating this policy proposal into the current developments that are happening with Guyana, such as the new ports, new wharfs, the influx of foreigners and foreign products that are coming into Guyana, and what that actually amounts to for the people of Guyana. So, you know, great question. Perfect time to ask such a question, because we are directly talking about cost of living and value or quality of life for the Guyanese people. That's what this whole thing is about. Nothing else. No outside politics, nothing like that. Just checking out the current affairs like every other citizen. Once again, I state, I'm not an economist, you know, I'm not an accountant, you know, I'm not anything within any one of those fields. I'm just a concerned citizen with a point of view and, you know, access to the internet, just like you. How you use it is up to you, right? We all got a brain. God gave us all a brain. How we use it, that's where we're individuals. That's where, you know, we're all different, you know. So maybe I might just see it from one point of view. I'm trying to share that with you. Maybe for those of you who are more professional in those areas, maybe you can do your technical research and you can come about and you can tell me the pros and the cons. Definitely look forward to seeing those pros and cons in the comment section, because I know Guyanese, the amount of comments I see people putting on everybody's post in Guyana, on TikTok, every type of post Guyanese people got to comment for. The amount of people has put comment, but they are interested, very interested in hearing what everybody got to say, right? Let's see. Ganesh, I am 100% in agreement with that, with what you're saying, but our number one priority is security. Tourists and investors want to be safe. Okay, yeah. So, first thing, this deals with security in a huge way, okay? And I will explain it to you. One, poor families get to keep a lot of money. Middle-class families get to keep a lot of their hard-earned money. That makes life easier. Less likely that people are going to want to rob, steal, and kill if they can afford the shit that they want. That's just one, right? Lower costs for the items that we bring in, since Guyana, realistically, I would say maybe 80 to 90% of all Guyanese households, or I'd say 100% of households utilize maybe 80 to 90% of foreign products. Because Guyana does not manufacture shit. Not the stuff that we use on a day-to-day basis. We don't do that. Right? We don't do that. But then you also have to think about the fact that if we remove income tax, okay, and we lower import tax, more people from the region will want to come and live in Guyana because then they will have a better quality of life. That deals with our skill-based problem, which we have a huge skill-based problem because there's a shortage of skilled workers. Because who's going to want to work if you got to hide your money or you got to be a criminal just to work honestly, right? Because of that, we end up with a lot more criminals and a lot more good people. So definitely that helps to counteract crime, right? Gina McCalmy, if they implement your system, it's not my system, I'm just building a system that I think would work for the country. Will food item price drop? Yes. Yes. Imported foods, prices will drop on imported foods because there wouldn't be excessive duties, excessive taxes, or certain import taxes on those foods, which means that, you know, from there, all of the stores that have those things marked up very high can now lower their prices, making it accessible to everyone in Guyana. You know, so, you know, the removal of those import taxes and those excessively high duties for items that people consider a right to have in this life, you know, will make, one, it's going to make Guyana look nicer. Things are going to be cheaper. And that's why Guyana will look nicer. Because now you can get a $5 item that's actually worth $5 instead of spending $5 on a $1 item. Just saying, you will get better quality stuff for your money. Which means people are going to less likely buy a lot of cheap shit that will break in a day, and they will buy things that can last them longer. That also deals with the sanitation issue. So from this system, we can get more skilled workers in the country. We can encourage our people to be skilled. They will receive more money, not necessarily by raises, but they get to take home more. They will have a better spending power. They will have better spending power because goods that are coming in the country will be cheaper. And I would say that the only areas that will truly be affected in the long term here, at least for the next 20 years based on this proposal, would be money that is leaving Guyana. It will be money that is leaving Guyana. And not all money. Only money that is just going out with no value coming back in. Okay? Very, very important to know that. Only money that's going out where solid, tangible items are not coming back in, where it's reduced now because lack of duty and lack of, excise and all those other import taxes, lack of that stuff. So it comes in country a lot cheaper. People, can then reward themselves. People can feel rewarded, right? Sugar Lolo, God, right? I'm talking about the complete removal of income tax for the next 20 years. Now, I don't see us sustaining it longer than 20 years, but for 20 years, for the next 2 decades, okay? And for the next 2 decades, by the way, is going to be the largest period of time where the most money is going to leave Guyana. We need to focus on keeping the money here in Guyana so that our economy continues to go up and the quality of life for our people go up and, spending power goes up. This is something really, really good for people. All right? Very, very important. Then our leaders in our country don't need to send money abroad to buy homes and stuff there because now everything that they wanted abroad can now be provided in Guyana and everyone can enjoy it without everyone looking on each other and feeling hurt or feeling upset or feeling deprived or unfairly treated. It just creates more of a balanced playing field, right? So the purpose of this policy, okay, is to establish a 20-year national framework, like written above. I'm going to do a little reading here now, right? Now, here are some of the things that you could look for. Part of the purpose, it will increase local spending and reduce money leakage abroad. It will, think about it. If you could buy better stuff cheaper here in Guyana, are you going to want to order online? No, you're not, because it's already here. That money stays in the country, or at least a portion of it, where otherwise the entire amount would have been leaving the country. Some of that money gets to stay here. It gets to stay here in the profit, as profit to the business people who are also Guyanese or, investing in Guyana. So they get that reward for doing more business in Guyana. If they're doing more business, they're creating more jobs. Right? Very important. Arrow, food prices not going to drop. The import tax needs to drop. I'd say remove the import tax for a certain space of time for Guyanese people. We're finally coming up. And, based on the amount of money that we're able to take loans to, instead, there are different ways to do it. And like I said, this is just a proposal. I'm not in government. I'm nobody important. I'm just a voice in the wilderness. That is all I am. But maybe when the breeze blows in the wilderness, the air smells fresh. You never know. You might like what I have to say, and maybe what I have to say might have a practical area where it can be implemented to the benefit of the people of Guyana. Right? So next, it also encourages investors and businesses to reinvest profits here in Guyana. So they don't make a bunch of money and send that money to a different country to invest. We want them reinvesting here. We need to ensure that they feel great about reinvesting here in our economy as opposed to just making money from it and getting out of it, right? Chuck, what's up with everybody distributing cheap plastic toys for Christmas? Well, the cheap plastic toys are normally the ones that most kids and most average families can afford to get after the taxes hit them. Because, it might seem cheap, but is it really cheap? It's, we're paying, 3, 4, 5 times more for some of those items, so it's not cheap. But it is a plastic toy. One that our kids could have probably gotten something better for that same price. But, because of the high taxes, this is what we're looking at. Right? So we ain't got no choice but to take the cheapest of the cheap. Now, I believe that many Guyanese would also agree that we deserve a little bit better than this. Maybe a lot of people may not know how to make it happen because, it's some technical configurations and stuff like that, right? And I would argue, even if I was coming from the next side, I would argue, say, Mr. Snow, you're not qualified for that. And I would probably tell you straight up, you know what, I'm probably not. But I am qualified to make a suggestion. Because that's how things start. We share our ideas. And I want this to be a platform where we all get to share our ideas constructively and productively toward the betterment of not just Guyana, but for the world that us Guyanese live in. Guyana is not our world. It should not be our world. We live on planet Earth. And we should be adequately integrated on Earth. Right? We're not captives in this small ass country. We're not prisoners. We're not pets. Right? Hi. If I hang up the phone on you, that means I can't talk to you right now. Please call back. Thank you. Yes, people are fucking geniuses. See, if I was a politician, I couldn't say that. It would seem distasteful. But being a regular citizen, I can speak my mind, right? So, on top of encouraging investors and encouraging companies to reinvest in the local economy, we also get to build a stronger local supply chain. How are we going to build a local let me explain how that works to you. That means materials that we might need to import into Guyana can now be imported cheaper which will allow us now to start manufacturing certain products or services, which we could manufacture here in Guyana and build value into it. And when we build value, that value added becomes profit for society. There's no shortcut here. I did not draft up a proposed policy with a shortcut, because there's no such thing as a shortcut when you're dealing with reality. Anything that sounds too goddamn good to be true, somebody's going to hang you down the line. Trust me. Do the math. Math will show you how this whole thing's got to be done. Right? Mathematics. Use it. Please. I beg you. Use it. If you don't know, just learn. You can learn math on YouTube these days. Very, very easy. Right? Right. So it's also going to promote asset-based growth. What does that mean to Guyana? It means you will actually have assets instead of being a walking liability. What do I mean by being a walking liability? It means everywhere you go, you're spending money and you ain't making nothing. You're a liability. You're an expense. You're a walking expense. Nobody wants to see anybody that every time you see that person, you're wasting money. It is the fastest way to make everybody run away from you. I can tell you, as I continue to grow, I want to see less and less people in my life. Just telling you. That's why I told people back in the day when I was really interested in politics, you should have taken me seriously. These days, I don't have time for that shit. I'm getting too old. These days, I want to enjoy a good quality of life. One day get married, sit down, probably make a few more kids, be able to afford to mind them in this country. Shit, what a dream, huh? What a dream, right? But it's possible. It is still very possible, right? But one of the biggest things that this policy proposes to do is reduce corruption. Because that is the number one enemy for everyone in this country. It is corruption. But we have systemic corruption. We have societal corruption, which is very much different than just having governmental corruption. Okay? And why do I say we have systemic corruption? Because we're in a system that punishes us for being good people. If you keep punishing decent people by making them pay the bills for the lazy people, those decent people will no longer be able to afford to be decent people. You will force these people to look for means as or methods as a means to survival in what would be considered a parasitic economy. Right? What do I consider parasitic economy? Lots of money coming into the country, but the people still live like shit. I consider that a parasitic economy. Now, might I say, I'm not saying that that is what we are currently living in, but we do have symptoms of a parasitic economy, because the type of system that we currently have running now is not realistically suited for Guyana, which is why I make this proposal, so that the leaders of the country might get the vision into some of these areas. Maybe it's something they know about, but I'm going to presume that they are not fully connected to the feelings of the average man. And that happens sometimes when you're dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. It's very easy to get disconnected from sometimes the people that you govern. Very, very easy. Especially when you're dealing with people who are billionaires and you're dealing with people who are below the poverty line. There is a vast difference. And at the same time, you need to be able to benefit both sides to run this place right. Just my opinion. right? I'm not here telling anybody that they're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying we've been doing the best with what we've had available. We have been doing the best we could with what we've had available up to this moment. Also, normally, there is a gridlock, normally, between the opposition and the current administration. Right now, the current administration has the most seats, to the best of my knowledge, that it's ever had before, which means if they wanted to change a policy or they wanted to implement a new policy by way of vote in the National Assembly, it means they can technically vote in almost anything that they really want to vote in. Just said, they can technically vote in anything that they truly want to vote in. They can change laws right now as the current administration because of their majority and the way Guyanese politics is actually set up. They can rewrite the entire Constitution if they wanted to right now. Whether the people would stand for it, that's a different question altogether. But based on the powers that are conferred onto the National Assembly, based on the powers that are conferred to each of these political entities, whether administration, opposition, whatever, you know, the practicality is that the administration now has full power to do what it needs to do based on the Constitution. But also, in order for that to happen, right, Parliament must be in session, National Assembly, blah, 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 and I'm not going to go into any dangerous topics, right? But it could be done, right? Now, of course, I'm also proposing that this type of policy only be implemented for a set amount of time. And that set amount of time is 2 decades, 20 years. Okay? Why do I say 20 years? It takes time to stabilize a system like this. It takes time to put things in place. It takes time to do these things. Also, because of the nature of Guyana's political history, this type of program needs to span beyond administrations, right? So it cannot be based on an electoral cycle. This type of sequence needs to happen over maybe 4 electoral cycles, or roughly about 20 years, for it to properly take root in the country and bear the type of results that are necessary. Also, by that 20-year mark, okay, we should be balancing up really, really nice with our resources and everything else that was pulled out, whatever chaos, whatever happened there, right? And Guyana can now stand, after that 20 years, on its own 2 feet, devoid of resource. By the end of that 20 years, our most profitable resource for Guyana, and I believe that this should have been the #1 resource for the country, is the people of Guyana. That should be the most profitable resource for the country. And right now, it's not. Right now, the people of our country, we are not assets. We are walking liabilities. And that's going to traumatize us over the rest of the history of our country if we don't do something significant to change that. Right? Something has. I think that most people who are watching, even people who may not fully agree with me, and that's okay. I'm still your friend if you don't agree with me. Just don't insult me stupidly, or then, you know, it's different. But we can agree to disagree until we find the right solution. Once we're working collaboratively toward that solution, then the solution will be raised. The solution will be found. It can be implemented. This is something that can realistically be done, right? Let's go. All right, so let's talk about some of the guiding principles. So number one guiding principle, it's going to keep the capital circulating locally. That means more money stays in the country, in the loop. People get to touch that money, use that money before it ever leaves Guyana. That also means that companies who are doing business in Guyana because they will also, they can also now earn their income, and they might say, hey, listen, you know what? Instead of paying me in US dollars in the US, pay me in Guyanese dollars in Guyana. Because then if they get paid in Guyana, they may not be subject to income tax, and then they can actually live a better quality of life, which means, once again, more wealth stays in the country. More people who have earned money outside will send their money back to Guyana because they have more spending power. Right? They'll have more spending power. Arrow, what's that? So I think Ali should be given 15 years, not 2 terms, 3 terms. He has to bring the VP on board with him. I don't believe that's probably the right thing. Just my personal opinion, right? Not in Guyana. I believe that everybody who goes up in Guyana should, especially if they're going for president, should know you either got 5 years or you got 10. You don't have more than that. You don't have more than that. I think allowing people to have more than that means that they probably didn't have a real systematic plan, or they don't have people that they trust to carry on the legacy of a plan that started however long ago, right? Our VP, Vice President Barra Jagdeo, he was smart enough and fortunate enough to have a couple understudies, persons like, Dr. Irfan Ali, who is now our president, and a whole host of a whole bunch of other teammates and stuff like that from government. Now, there might be a lot of different reasons for that. We'll discuss that in another show. Probably not, because that's not the best thing to discuss. But, we'll get to it at some point in time. I'm here to talk finance, right? But yeah, just my opinion. I believe that, like life, you appreciate life more because you know you're going to die. If you thought you would live forever, the amount of things you would no longer appreciate, you would take everything for granted, at least for a certain period of time. And everybody else who has a limited amount of life, they're going to punish until you figure it out. So no, I think that the limitations, especially on positions of that much power, needs to be in place just for checks and balances. Just my personal opinion, right? Now, yes, if somebody's a great president, we might want them to be there much, much longer, and that's good. However, this world shouldn't be based on just our feelings. We need to think practically, and there needs to be checks and balances, and there needs to be things in place, right? Well, he had 5 years to clean up. I'm pretty sure he was planning on his cleanup during those 5 years, because before that, he was in government at some point in time. So all the cleaning up and stuff like that, they should have been planning how they were going to be doing it for a long space of time. And I would assume that they have, right? And give them the benefit of the doubt, because at the same time, they are still the most prepared political party in place to manage the country. I can't do better, because I'm just one man. So I can't do better, right? So they got the run of the mill right now, and salute them, and just try to help out where I could help out, right? Without being a dick about it, right? Without trying to, shake up the public. This is unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. Because I'm pretty sure the same problems that I'm talking about now, they are witnessing those things. And they are looking for solutions. I know right now, if the president wants to look good, he needs to clean up corruption across the board. So he needs a desperate solution for that. And also at the same time, the leaders need to find out a way to lower cost of living and still make it feasible. So I hope that these suggestions can help them. Or maybe they can take some of them into consideration. Right? Now, also the guiding principles of this policy is rewarding investment instead of relying on coercion. Okay? People will want to go into the tax office. People are going to be happy. They're not going to feel threatened. They're not going to feel pressured. They're not, they know they haven't done anything wrong. And if they want to get more benefits, they're going to show up. And they're going to be like, hey, taxman, look, you missed this. You missed this right here. yeah, you know, they'll be chasing down the tax office. And listen. You missed this, just sign this off, check it out. You know, nobody's going to be running from it. Right? And that's a key. That's key, because if people are running from one thing, they're running into the hands of corrupted people who are offering them incentives and shortcuts, and you know. And I'd rather pay $10 than pay $20. Anybody who tells me you rather pay $20 instead of paying $10, you're a fucking liar. Right? You're a liar. And anybody that tells you that, stay away from them. Stay away from them. Just stay away from them. You will thank me later in your life before one of those people destroys your life. Right? Next. Where we at? We create predictable rules that reduce bribery and fixing. Think about it. No more middlemen. No more fixers. No more, I can get this done for you, or I can get that done for you. Why you gotta wait? You don't want to wait in line for 10 days to get the 5-minute thing. Give me a 10,000 and let me push it for you. All of that gone out the window. All of that gets removed. Because bribery can only exist if there's a benefit to bribery. But if there's no longer a benefit to bribing people, nobody's going to want bribery. There's no money to make for wronging the government. There's no money to make for robbing the people. Don't you see? You're attacking at its source. You remove the catalyst out to get money. Is the catalyst greed? Why is that happening? Because people feel horrible. And greedy people and corrupted people almost never do things by themselves. They need an accomplice. They need a willing soul. They need somebody who is looking for an opportunity. If you were to implement this type of policy, those opportunities are out the window, and the best opportunity becomes compliance. And that is what we need. We need compliance. Right? So we need to look at it from that social aspect too, not just a financial aspect. Because like I said, you know, we are socially corrupted. We're systematically socially corrupted as a nation. So if we're just talking numbers and we're not talking about addressing the social psychology of the situation, then we're not truly getting to the heart of the problem. We just putting Band-Aid, cover up, and somebody else gets their stuff. So we need to eliminate the urge or the want for somebody to pay a bribe, or the need for somebody to feel that there's a benefit to paying a bribe. So it definitely reduces corruption, right? And that makes things predictable, transparent. And once again, it is incentive driven, right? Gina, God bless you. I have to pay bribes already, just to keep from being victimized. So I'm talking it straight. I have to pay bribes at GRA in the past, just not to be punished and stand in line for 10 hours. You know, getting stopped wrongfully from police when they're telling you, "Hey, boss, what's up? What you leaving? What you giving me?" Like, thinking like, seriously, I'm not even your boss, right? You know. You go almost anywhere in Guyana, bribery is in the heart and soul of the country, whether we like it or not, right? So, you know, looking at these things, very, very important. So it will reduce corruption. And after that 20 years, most of the corrupt entities would have left the fields, and decent people would have been trained and worked up the ladder and have integrity and be in the system. Have integrity in the system. Do you know what that means? That means that we will have a system with integrity. Right? So just letting you know. Right? Now, there are a lot of other things that I want to talk about here tonight. But of course, those of you who are on Facebook, you get to see the whole write-up that I put there. And like I said, this is just a proposal. This is something, it's food for thought. Right? It addresses some of the real issues that affect us here in Guyana as Guyanese. It affects your livelihood, your quality of life. It directly affects your quality of life. Right? So I do believe that these are some of the things that we should be focused on. If we talk about corruption, you might as well lock up the whole fucking country. The whole country got to go to jail if you're talking about corruption. Right? Because I don't know not one person in Guyana, truthfully, that has not either benefited or had to use corruption to even protect yourself. Right? So when you hear Guyanese talking about corruption, the only thing that I can say is hypocrite. Because we have all had, if you live in Guyana, you have either entertained or had to, passively entertain corruption. Whether you did it directly or indirectly, you've been affected by it. Right? You have been affected by it. Or you've got a family or a friend or somebody close to you who have had their hand in some cookie jar or done something that they probably shouldn't 100% under any legal system should have done. It is incredibly hard. And this is why I say I have not seen one truthfully honest business person in Guyana because it's very hard. Not successful, at least. I've seen some honest business people in Guyana, but they don't make it. They don't make it. It's too much pressure on them. They just don't make it. If you don't got a friend, if you don't know something, if you don't know a rule, you're done. You're freaking done. You're absolutely done. And this type of policy, ladies and gentlemen, will address the issues at the root that helps to counteract that. But it has to be consistent. It has to run for a period of time. Errol, I understand that's in NYC. You guys can keep that shit in NYC. NYC got how many people? Guyana got less than 1 million people. Now is the time to implement the new systems before Guyana really explodes with the population growth. But you have to do it in the right way. Oh, by the way, once we remove income tax and all of that stuff, then Guyanese could start charging fees for people who want visas to come to our country. It will make more sense. It'll be one of the few countries where you can actually work hard and get a high quality of life. Right? That will also allow us to integrate correctly with the rest of Latin America so that we don't always feel like strangers on this continent. Why? Because trade can happen back and forth a lot easier. Certain things can happen. Right? Might I say I'm only talking about the income tax and the duties because those are things that will directly affect the people and not directly affect everything else. And those things can be offset by the money that is leaving the country because if you really think about how much money leaves Guyana by way of resource and all of these things, it's a lot. It can definitely offset what the people actually make in income because most of the people who are working don't declare their income anyway. We still have people in the country that can't even read and write, much less go and line up to go and declare their income. Some people are working with companies, their employees are still taking their NIS, charging them taxes, and never even pay the taxes. Fact. This is a fact. So it protects people. And it limits the amount of things that people can do that are illegal. Keeping the legal framework in place. Based on the amount of police that we have, based on the amount of auditors that we have, based on the amount of manpower that we have in these various agencies, I believe keeping a system in check that can suffice for the amount of population that we have is drastically important, because I do believe that human resource should be the number one resource. Right now, it is not the number one resource in Guyana. And that says a sad story for us as a people, that our human resources are not the number one resource in this country. Right? We should be the most valuable resource in Guyana. Those of us who think, those of us who could do things. But we're not. Something that comes out of the dirt, from the bottom of the ocean, or from the ground where a dog just pissed, might be worth more than us on an international market as a resource, and we don't carry value. In fact, people don't even want to see us. Just saying. But that can turn around. That can turn around really, really fast. Right? Just letting you know, right? So some of the other guiding principles, other than keeping the currency circulating, would be also to reward investment, like I stated earlier, predictable rules, decentralized opportunities. This is probably one of the biggest talking point for people here in Guyana. How many people in Guyana feel like some people get benefits and other people don't? I can tell you, I feel like that. And I don't think I'm the only one that feels like that. I've been in Guyana for a couple decades already, and I can tell you, just based on public consensus, just look at Facebook and social media, you will tell people feel that opportunities for the country are centralized within the hands and the pockets of just a few individuals. And that may not necessarily be the case, but that is how the mass majority, that is what they feel. But in a system like this, with that type of tax system in place, it decentralizes opportunity, meaning that there will be more equal opportunity across the country that can benefit people in all regions in Guyana. People from other countries wouldn't even mind coming and living in the exterior regions of our country just to get those tax breaks. Right? Just to get those tax breaks. That's real. That is real. Things would happen. Guyana, we don't, in situations like that, private investors will come and build roads for the government. Just to have access to those types of tax benefits. There are different ways to do this thing. Rup Narayan Singh, Guyana under the present administration is headed in the right direction, but there are still some hurdles to do business. Uh-oh, what happened here? Uh-oh. Let me bring this thing back up. Oh, you see, you ever touch something and then lose it? Okay, here we go. Comment from Rup Narayan Singh on Facebook. Guyana under the present administration is headed in the right direction, but there are still some hurdles to do business in the country. For example, bribery. Exactly. So this type of proposal for a new tax system, right, will help to nip at least a majority of bribery and corruption in the bud. Making sure that the government and the government tax agencies and everything at least show as transparently as they could that they are not partial, but they are impartial, and everybody gets treated the same across the board. And I think that would be a huge turning point for any administration. Doesn't matter who it is. Any administration or government that can achieve that, I don't think anybody would ever want you out the power. And then not because they don't have different options, but because you would have just become the most valid and only option that makes sense. That just destroys any other option. So, maybe what I'm saying might have, a couple little treats in there for the government if they were to utilize this. Just saying, Also, based on how Guyanese would be living over those 20 years, you will see visible, real assets. Because Guyanese can now actually own shit that makes sense. with all the people that are going to be coming in to work and do other things with other investment that's coming in, we're going to have a lot of tenants who are going to want to rent stuff, man. That means all those house lots that the government been giving away can now become revenue generating properties that are affordable. That somebody can now afford to rent from you and still go out and buy all the nice things to eat, keep their fridge stocked, drive a nice car, and feel great about paying you, the Guyanese citizen, rent for being in your country. That is a win for everybody. Trust me on this one. It is. Right now, only a handful of people get to enjoy that. What if it was possible for people across the board in the country to enjoy that if only they applied themselves, if they were just working? And it shouldn't be based on whether you like this government or not. That should just be something across the board for all Guyanese. But I do understand how politics works. I do understand that. So the type of proposals I make are not necessarily politically minded proposals. They're people-minded proposals, right? They're human-minded proposals. These proposals are made in the interest of a developing human race, in the interest of a developing social economic culture, in interest of the development of a strong, better Guyana, one where everyone feels like they are being treated fairly and nobody feels as if they're being extorted, coerced, or bullied in some which way, shape, size, or form, right? Also, it will create a stable workforce. And that is one of the number one things that is going to affect everyone in Guyana. And that is a stable workforce, right? Let's see, there are some people, somebody said, who are you kidding, my friend? I'm not kidding anybody. Apple something, something. I'm just making a proposal. It's not a joke to me. Because I know, it's a possibility. So forgive me if it's not a possibility to you, Apple, but this is something that could legally be possible. Whether it will become possible or not, well, that's up to the administration and up to the people that support the administration. And if my proposal here tonight does not make sense. But if it does make sense, maybe even just food for thought, it may stimulate an idea in somebody's mind who is a million times more brilliant than my stupid ass. And maybe they might make the difference. I don't care who gets the credit. I just want to see it done. And maybe that's the only reward that we should really need. Because if this gets done, I'm a citizen of Guyana. I'm going to benefit too. We're all going to benefit. The people that don't like me are going to benefit. I don't have time with that shit. That's what's up. We need to take out the emotion, take out the pain, and just address the issue from where the issue starts. And corruption and bribery and all of that stuff is only possible because people feel that they need an edge to survive. Maybe not everybody. Some people greedy. But most citizens don't want to be involved in anything illegal. Nobody wants to work hard and then jeopardize their potential freedom or something. Nobody wants to do it. But I tell you, just like everybody, I would prefer to stiff the government than to rob myself every day in the name of building something great that I can't even enjoy a piece of. And that is how most of the citizens feel. They feel like even if they're part of something great, they're not going to get value. They're not going to be valued. They haven't felt value. And even though there are a lot of valuable things being done now, are those things adequately relatable to the people directly in ways that are very tangible and practical and physically real for them? Right? A bridge is nice, but that's a bridge to go to work. Can you show me a bridge that'll help me stop having to work every day in my life at some point in time? We're getting new roads, but that's to go to work, to do somebody else's work. Can you show me the road that leads me to me doing a little less work in my life and being able to enjoy some part of my life before I die? Just say, the roads are great, bridges are great, development is great. But if we are not developing a proper social mentality with all of the power that everybody got, if you cannot orchestrate the proper social mindset of a country, then I would honestly tell you, you're in the wrong place. Just say it. You can be an accountant. You can be an economist. That's being an economist. That's being an accountant. You can be a doctor. That's being a doctor. It doesn't mean that what you do will benefit the people. But if you are people orientated and you're practical, then there are solutions that could be entertained. Now, 10 years ago, you couldn't entertain this because the country wasn't in a safe zone. So you couldn't take this risk. You couldn't entertain this. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, you could not entertain this. But today you could. You could definitely entertain this today. And it can work. It's there. The ability to do it is there. But clear, accountable, and responsible management is going to be the precedent for the way forward. Right? Also, based on this proposal here, everything is a policy. Every policy here has structure. You know, it's solid. Right? There are ways to balance and navigate. You know, it helps people with housing and development, affordable housing, of course. Also, community infrastructure and development. People who have more tend to think about the things that they have. They feel like they have more, so they want to do better. People who feel like they're getting nothing in life, and no matter how hard they work, you break them, they're demotivated, they're angry. Wait. Hi, Daddy. You know, whichever one of my children that is, please state your name. Because hi, Daddy can come from a lot of my children. Okay. Just verify. Wonder if that's, yeah. And it shouldn't be my youngest. He should be asleep right now because he's got school tomorrow. But in case that is you, Papa, Daddy loves you very much. Okay? Daddy loves you very, very much. Priority. See? Priorities. Very important. Right? People over politics. Right? If that's how we think, the world goes good. But not everybody's going to think like that. All right? Yeah, so, you know, there's so many other things that can happen here. So for those of you who are on TikTok, if you're not watching this here on Facebook, you can send me a message. I'll send you an entire write-up of the proposal of the policy, and you can have a look at it yourself. You know, you can make your critique. I invite you to make your critique. Once again, you know, let me just state for the record, I'm not an economist, right? I'm not into certain types of finance. I'm not an accountant, you know. I can do my own taxes, though. Unless you're doing taxes in Guyana, because that shit changes. They tell you one thing, and then when you go into GRA, it's something completely different. Don't ever believe what you see on the website. It's not the same thing. Trust me, you will be caught off guard 70% of the time. Right? Just stating. Okay. You know, but it's going to do so many positive things for us. And of course, I don't want to take up too much more of your evening, but there is still like a whole bunch of other stuff. This is a tax policy, right? So I can't just discuss it in like a 1 hour, hour and a half. It really needs to be broken down. And that's why I laid some of these things out here for the public to watch, read, review, read, review, study, research, think about it, and see how you could either improve upon it, or if there's something that was missing from it that you would like to be part of the process, right? Lynette, but citizens already get tax-free? What citizens get tax-free? Don't tell me the poorest ones, Lynette, because if you're poor and they taxing you regardless of what, even if they're paying you less, in that type of situations, companies can afford to pay you more. Just think about it, because companies get to keep some more of their profit. And that profit can now be shared with their staff, who are the people that actually keep the companies rolling. So it almost immediately filters down to the small man. Right? So the smallest guy in the country, he gets that immediate benefit, because more opportunities will exist for a small person to climb. We have less than 1 million people. This type of program can set at least 50% of the country and some of our descendants well off for the next 100 years, if done right within the next 20. Right? If this thing is done right within the next 20 years, most of the population can be set for the next 100 years, unless we have bad leadership. If we have bad leadership, then it can fall in 5 seconds. Just letting you know. But the leadership is determined by the people and who the people pick. Remember that. So, any government, I'll tell you this, any government running along this line here, the country will never want to lose you. You will win over your entire nation. Because the benefits of this type of system can immediately be transferred to every citizen in the country across the board. Right? It will also encourage international investment, which we need tons and tons of international investment. Ladies and gentlemen, we need that. There's no way our country is going to develop without private sector entities. No way. It's just not happening. Right? It's not happening. Right? And for anybody that wants to put all the weight on the government, you're an idiot. Because the more weight you put on the government is also the more power you give to the government over your life. And the reality is the government's still getting their shit together. Do you really want them to have that much power over your personal life? Your call. Okay? I would much prefer, though, people who have their shit together 150% assist me with getting my shit together. Just common sense. Common sense. But it's going to be very hard for the government to systematically get to everybody until they can stabilize what they're doing. And in some areas they are, and they're doing great in some areas. But there are going to be other areas that, at least I know, I've seen how corruption affects the country. I've seen how it stagnates, it makes things less efficient. Everybody suffers because of it. And part of that reason is because we have so many excess taxes. Right? Think about it. 28 to 42% of whatever you earn gone to government that you very seldom see benefits from. Right? And they use it to pay public servants, and then when you go into certain places, you're treated like shit. If that's what my tax money is always doing for me, I wouldn't want to pay taxes. The only reason why I pay my taxes now is because I don't want to go to jail. I'm telling you straight. But if shit was different, I'll be the first man in line. Anytime I get money, I'll be right there. I'll be like, yo, here's your cut. Here's your cut. Scan my little tax card. Look, I'm making my contribution. Because I know that the government protects us. In the current situation, it feels more like the government is just victimizing us with excessive taxes. On top of that, we have so much resources and resource funds growing. It leads me to wonder, why are we still overtaxing the shit out of our people? when we could do things now to make cost of living lower in Guyana and kind of spread around the wealth in a way that is directly and immediately transferable to every citizen of Guyana. This policy would be felt by everyone in a massive, positive way. But it must be structured, must be done right, must be managed correctly, right? But because of how it's structured, there's less chances of corruption. Not saying that corruption is impossible within the system, but there's definitely less chance of it. And if there is corruption that happens here, it will more than likely be the very top end of people who would be involved in corruption with a system like this. And even so, because of those types of systems that are in place, it would make it almost instantly noticeable when someone is corrupt. Oh, by the way, traceable. Very important, right? So like I said, in my opinion, there's only three types of people that will have a problem with this, right? And they're all three types of bad types of people. People who definitely probably don't want to see you grow, or people who want to use you, manipulate you, or some sort of, issue like that. But when the people of a country gets more financial leverage, they become more independent. And when you become more independent, you tend to educate yourselves properly, you tend to educate your children properly, you tend to build a better future from your legacy. And what does that translate to? It translates to a more functional community, which more functional region, and then from there transfers into a more functional country. And then that will have its own results globally. And once again, I would say those results will be almost instantly noticeable. Now, how will a policy like this work in collaboration to others? I'm not describing socialism, Basil. How dare you say something like that? Right? How is that socialism? By giving certain tax breaks to people who have been overtaxed all their life for a certain period of time in order to stabilize and counteract the weaknesses that we have in our society. Right? Right? So I'm just curious, Basil. I never said anything about people not working. I never said anything about giving handouts or anything of that nature. In fact, if you want to talk about a socialist system is a system where politicians walk around the country giving out money for votes. Just saying, Basil. Right? And if that's the case, how many groups have been guilty of that type of action? Just saying. So be mindful what you call a socialist. Right? Because what I'm speaking about right now is taxation and economics. And if you only know about socialism and capitalism, right, but you don't know about economics and math, then you're on the wrong page, buddy. Go back, get your definitions correct, read a fucking dictionary, right, and then come back. No disrespect, man. All right? Just a little education for you. All right? So, that's what I'm talking about. Very, very simple. Very, very direct. I'm not here to play friend or foe. I'm just here to tell you, this is my proposal. The government doesn't have to take it. But I guarantee, because I'm brave enough to put it out here, someone will hear it. Even if I die tomorrow, this idea is now out here in the world. Okay? It's out here. Right? And for persons who are interested in having a copy of this proposal in a detailed summary format, just send me a message in DM and I'll send you a PDF of it. Something for you to look at, just to research. It's not a law. I'm not a lawmaker. I'm a citizen. I vote for the people who make the laws. Remember that. Right? In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, definitely look forward to seeing your comments in the section below. God bless the government of Guyana, because they have one hell of a task, right? And I say the government because the government encapsulates everybody, the administration and the opposition and everybody else, right? All over. Basil, I'm not talking about the United States, brother. If you want to talk about the United States, you go and talk to Donald Trump. I'm talking about Guyana. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Guyana. Okay? Guyana. Right? So, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not, you see, imagine meeting a woman. You like the woman. You want to talk to the woman. And when you go and you start romancing the woman, you start talking about another woman. You know how fast that woman gonna lose interest in you? Just saying. Right? So, when you're talking to one person, talk about that one thing. Don't talk about different people when we're talking about one thing. This is a Guyanese conversation. This is for Abby Guyanese. This is for we. What I'm saying here, not everybody's going to want to hear it. Because this is a strategy to empower Guyanese people. And there are many people out of the world that might not want to see us get empowered. Because when we're low and destitute and broken and starving for a dollar, it's very easy for people to use us. But when we are setting ourselves right socially, economically, then it's very hard for people to take advantage of us. So, like I said, this proposal here, this is just a proposal, right? For those who might want to look over it, right? Like I said before, I'm not a big buy, nothing special, just a citizen. And this is an idea, something that I'm proposing, right? I've done some math behind it, done some studies, but of course there are so many more brilliant people out there, especially normally, all the comments, you see everybody always making comments, everybody in Guyana always got something to say, always running our mouths, yap, 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 yap. So I'm hoping that when we run our mouths, we say something of actual value and substance, something that can actually make a difference. Other than that, all we're doing is talking shit with some of our friends and stuff like that and making ourselves feel good. That shit doesn't make, think about it. You ever really see me need to have a whole bunch of people with me to put across my point? Hell no. Because I don't need to feel good that I'm convincing you. I just want to share what God has blessed me with. That's it. And somebody out there can go and be the hero. Here's the sword. Go slay the dragon. Right? All right, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody, God bless you. Exactly, Arrow. I don't know who's watching. Maybe somebody who could make a difference is watching. You never know. And I would never know if I never take the chance. Maybe today's leader doesn't see it, but maybe your child sees it. And your child says, you know what? This sounds like it makes some sense. And as your child gets older, your child said one day, hey, I heard somebody talking about this thing. Who knows? Maybe it's one of our children that are meant to do something great. But if we shut our mouths or we speak nonsensibly everywhere we go, then you'll never know. You will never know. But at least I know I've shot my shot here today. I put it out there. And I put it out there in good faith. What more is a prophet supposed to do? I'll come and tell you something early before anything else happens. Because I'll tell you this, by the time the results of most of this stuff comes in, I'm not going to be here to enjoy it. Many of you will. what I say here is not for me. But only time will reveal what must really happen. In the meantime, God bless all of you. Thank you for, being entertained by me and also entertaining my proposal here tonight. I truly appreciate it, and I hope my words do not fall upon deaf ears. Have a blessed night. God bless everyone. And once again, if anyone needs a copy of the proposal, send me a message right here on TikTok or on Facebook, and I'll send you a PDF copy. Take care.